Okay, now we're going to talk about Google Sheets a little bit. Similarly to Slides and Doc, you can add a new Google Sheets by clicking the New button and selecting Sheets, or by navigating to Sheets in the app launcher. So I have created, this is just kind of an example data sheet with some information from the Olympics in it, so that we can kind of see how you can navigate a Google Sheet and the different things that you can do. So first, let's start off with just some of the very basic actions that you can use. Okay, so when I scroll to the right, I've got lots of unused columns that I don't need. So I can click and you can delete unneeded columns. So I can delete them one at a time like that. Or I can click there, hold down Shift, and click all the way over to Z. Right click, and it's going to delete all of those columns from P to Z that don't have anything in them. And then you can also go back later, right click, and insert another column if you need another place to add more data in. Also, notice I have all of these unneeded rows at the bottom, so I can also delete them similarly. So that I only have the rows and columns that actually have data in them. I'm going to change my font just because I don't really like this one. It's kind of boring. So if you click right here in this top left block is going to select the entire spreadsheet for you. And you can go in and change your font to something different. This one. You can also change your font size, all the normal ways that you can manipulate text that you would have in docs or slides. Okay, so notice now when I made the font a little bigger, I can't see all of the text in this column. So if I want to fix that, I can do I can set my spreadsheet to wrap the text. I can do it just for this column, or if I want to set that for the entire spreadsheet, I can select the whole spreadsheet, go to Format, Wrapping, and then choose Wrap. That's going to make it so that I can see the entirety of the text or the data that's entered. Also, if I want these columns to be a little bit wider, I can do that as well. So I can pull just one particular column to make it wider. Or let's say all of these columns G through O seem to have text in them. So let's say I want to make them all wider. So if I highlight all of them and then pull, it's going to adjust all the columns the same amount. Another thing that you can do that's helpful in a spreadsheet is you can freeze rows or columns. And that makes a lot of sense, especially in data kind of like this, where there's sort of a title bar, so that if people are manipulating the data or sorting it, it's not going to sort the title bar out. So here's how you do that. First off, before we do that, let's go here and let's center all of the titles. And then also say maybe I want to make the title bar a color. Can do that here. Now to freeze it, I'm going to select just that row, not the entire data set, but just this row 1. Under View, I have the option to freeze, and I'm going to select to freeze one row. So now I have frozen that row. It can't be manipulated, and I'll show you what I mean in a second when we start to sort the data. You can do the same thing with a column. If I don't want the IDs to change, I could also freeze a column. You would just select the column and select freeze. For this particular data set, that doesn't really make sense, so I'm not going to do that here. Okay, now that I have my top row frozen and it won't move, I can start to kind of sort and look at different pieces within this data. For example, let's say I want to sort by the Olympic team. So if I click here, if I click the drop down in column G, I'm going to have the option to sort the sheet from A to Z or Z to A. So if I sort from A to Z, now it's going to have that organized alphabetically from A to Z, or I can reverse it from Z to A. And now we've got United States up at the top, and I can view the data that way. Another Google Sheet feature is conditional formatting. If we go to Format and choose Conditional Formatting, that's going to allow you to set the sheet to apply a particular color or underline or whatever formatting style you want to apply to cells that follow a particular rule. Now right here I am on range G2 because that's all I have selected. Let's say I want this to go for the whole column. I can type that in here, G2 through G100 or whatever, but it's honestly going to be easier for me to select the entire column and then go to conditional formatting. Okay, so let's add a rule. So right now it is set for if the cell is not empty, it is going to turn to the default color of green. Let's say that we want to set a different, let's set a different rule. So let's do the drop down. Maybe I want to point out all of the United States teams. So I can do text contains United States, and let's say I want all of those to be coded blue. And there's tons of different options. You can do text contains, you can do if the cell is empty, you can make it based off values greater than or less than or between, or you can even set up your own custom formula. Or if you're trying to keep track of like something on a timeline, you can have it kind of alert you according to if you've gone past a particular date or something like that. So for this one, again, we set it to turn blue if the text contains United States. So now that we set that, you can see in our sheet only United States is turned blue. Also, I'm sure you are aware that there are tons of function options within Google Sheets. I'm just going to show you the basic sum option. I feel like that's the basic one that's used most often, but there are lots of them. So I've added 3 more columns, and let's pretend that these are scores, and then I want to see a total here. So I'm just going to put some random numbers in. If I want this to generate the total for me of the 2 scores, I'm going to go up and insert function sum. And now I can just click and drag these 2 cells that I want to be added together. Hit enter. Now when I do that, it's going to suggest to autofill that for me and then just do that function for all the rest of the cells. That is what I want, so I should just click check mark. You can easily set that function that way. But if I hadn't done that, the other way that I can also make that happen is now that I have that function set here, I can grab this little box and pull down, and it's going to also apply that function to the rest of the cells, and it's going to add this data up to get a total for me. Like I said, there are tons of other functions that you can play around with. If you click on the function menu, you can see all the different options that you have. I just showed some because I think that's the one that's used most often. A couple of other things you can do to manipulate your data. You can hide a column or a row. So let's say we don't want to see this ID column. If I click the drop down menu and choose hide column, that's going to make that one kind of disappear. And when you share with others, if they are set just to view, they should not be able to reopen that column. So that's really good if you're trying to hide information that is secure, that you don't want people to be able to see, but you don't want to have to create a whole new sheet. I can go back up here though and click just to bring that column back. Same thing with a row. If I just need to hide row 2, or click to bring it back. Another thing that you can do is merge cells together. That can be beneficial if you are needing to show kind of two pieces of data that fit into one particular, that fit under one particular category. Let's say over here with my scores, I'm going to add a new row above. And let's say I want this to show that it is score calculations. All right, so right now I have that there, but let's say I want it to stretch over all 3 of these. I can hold down Shift, make sure I have all 3 of the cells selected, and then this little button right up here is going to merge the cells for you. So when I do that, now it's making that kind of overlap all 3 of those columns. If I want to unmerge them, just select unmerge and they'll go back the way they were. Another really helpful function in a spreadsheet is the find shortcut. And you can actually use the find shortcut in any document, but I find it especially helpful in a spreadsheet. So let's say I'm looking for a particular person and I don't want to have to search through this entire data set to find it. You can hit Command F or Control F if you're not using a Mac. And that's going to pop up this find box for you. And I can start typing a name, and then the spreadsheet is going to locate for you where that text can be found in the spreadsheet. One last thing, notice that I have one sheet open here. I can also create a new sheet if I want to have another set of data that goes with this. So if I need a second sheet off of this one down here, I can add a new one. When you create a new sheet, you can also copy over particular pieces of data from your previous sheet and sort of kind of narrow down or work with it that way. So that's one thing that they're useful for. So if I only want a few columns, I could copy and paste those over to this second sheet and now just work within those. All right, well, that's most of the basics. Similarly to Google Docs and Google Slides, you can download in different formats or print your sheet. When it comes to print, it's really important that you've deleted all those extra columns and rows that you don't need, so that you can make sure your data is going to print as big as it possibly can. You can also publish a sheet to the web just like with Slides and Docs by going to Share and Publish. You can choose the entire document or just particular sheets. And that's going to give you that link just like we saw in Google Slides and Docs. Very helpful if you want to be able to publish data for others to view but not be able to manipulate. The last thing that I'm going to say about Google Sheets is just that it can really be used for a whole lot more than just evaluating data that you have collected. Just a couple quick examples of that are this. log that was created for teachers to be able to check off when students hit certain criteria or to add comments as they are observing and evaluating different needs within their students. Or this is an example of Google Sheets being used to sort of create a help document that would allow teachers to see where different test items fall within different standard areas. Just quickly so that you can kind of see that there are lots of different ways you can use Google Sheets rather than just evaluating data.